It's a great product. It's very durable. It's green. It takes zero carbon to make. It's got all of the good attributes. It's warm. It keeps itself hydrated because it acclimates to the stuff that it's around. But on the same hand, wood is also a major nightmare because since it's tongue and groove, you can't really replace the center board without taking half the floor out. It scratches easily, and I don't mean like with your shoes walking across it, which can do it if you have a rock, but like I've had an instance where a person had a rocking chair that they slid around a lot because they'd rock on it and then it would move, and it just tore the heck out of the floor where it sit. So when they moved the rocking chair, they didn't realize it, but when they moved the rocking chair to the other side of the room, there's a gigantic cuts in the, and there's no fixing it. You got to sand the whole thing down. One advantage though is you can sand multiple times a wood floor. Depending on, like engineered woods are a little bit harder to do, but an old style oak can be sanded. Maybe 5-6 times before it gets down to the tongue and groove portion. What's up?
That's what I got in my house. That's what I'm working on now.
Yeah.
Start sanding it down and re-stain.
So you can get, upwards of 5 sandings out of a wood floor. So you can sand it and then resand it, change the color. But once you get down to a certain depth, the tongue starts breaking off, and the groove, it's actually the groove that starts breaking off, and then it's not viable anymore. You got to replace the whole thing. But there's all different types of widths, and there's also different types of thicknesses, and then they got random lengths and everything else. This is a random length wood floor that you're looking at. This is what it looks like in profile. So what I'm talking about, I can sand this down until I get close to this groove. Once I get like right down here where the groove's at, this groove will pop off. So you get X amount of sandings until like gym floors, we talk commercially, gym floors, we normally get 4 to 5 sandings out of a gym floor. So they can, Vienna just redid theirs, Goreville did theirs about 2 years ago. I've done several projects where we do a resurface on the gym floor. It works out really, really good for the schools because they get damaged, there's a lot of use on them, but once you get to a certain point, it's got to replace the whole thing. But this is the reason why you can't replace a board out in the middle, is because when you pull this board out, it's got a tongue and a groove, and you can't get another board back in. So you either break the groove off of one next to it, or you can saw it, try to cut them out. But normally, not seen too many times where it was really viable and looked good at the end when you did a patch. A lot of times in schools, they'll just cut a big square out and just do a square as a temporary fix. Plank flooring is not as smooth, not as finished. Never really seen anywhere. Here's some block flooring. This was really common in the 70s. It's not very common now. It's wood floor, but it's put in a pattern. And matter of fact, I don't know anybody that's done this in the last 20 years, other than just patching up something that was old. Engineered wood flooring is different. Now, you can't sand the top of it because it's either got it's got a veneer finish over. So let's say it's got an oak. It might be pine underneath, and it's just got 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch of oak at the top of it. So you're not going to get any sandings out of that. If you do, it will be only one, and I doubt you'll get that. But it's cheaper. You can glue it together. Some of them are composite. Some of them are made of veneer. Very few of them are truly hardwood top to bottom. a lot of times with a pre-engineered board, it comes stained with an old style oak floor. You're going to have to physically stain it. But a pre-engineered will come pre-stained, so you can see what it's going to look like before you install it. Good and bad to that. Good is it is pretty and you don't have to stain it, and it's got a continuous, you know, what's the right word? Consistent finish. But the bad part about it is that when you're installing it, if you scratch it, you have to throw it away. You know, you don't end up sanding it. You know, so you can't have a little bit more waste with it. Some of these will even be, you know, composite vinyl, like vinyl flooring would be engineered. Sizes, I'm not really worried about that. All right, so here's the important part about wood. Wood is, and we've talked about this before, wood is a natural material that moves and grows and shrinks. It's called acclimation. So when it acclimates, it takes on the water content of what's around it and the temperature of what's around it. So typically, you want to have your air conditioner running, and I know some contractors don't want to turn the air conditioner on or the heating on until they're done with the project, because they don't want to clean out, they don't want dust and dirt to get into the system and have to go clean out ducts or anything like that, or have to change filters. I've heard them say all kinds of stuff like we don't want our HVAC system to be bad. But if you're installing hardwood, true hardwood, you want them to have the air conditioning running like it would normally be running. You want them to have the heater running like it would normally be running, because we want to take the wood into the house and leave it for 7 days and let it acclimate. And some of them say up to 3 weeks if it's in a different work zone. Yeah, which climate zone? Because they want it to be. If you install it the day you bring it in, and let's say it just came out of a warehouse, and it's 80% humidity outside, that stuff is going to shrink and crack, and it's literally going to creak when you walk across it, because the nails are going to be pulling up against it. On the opposite side, if it just came out of the kiln and was super dry, and you put it in your house with 50% humidity, it's going to expand, and it's going to push up against the door frames and the doors and everything else, and nothing's it's going to buckle in the middle. It really moves a lot. So acclimation is the way you get your warranty on engineered hardwood. You will not get a warranty if you install it the day it comes in. You have to follow their recommendations, and you document the day that you put it in. You put it in the house, that the HVAC system was on. You just sit there for 7 days, and then you installed it. That's the only way you get your warranty. Lots of products are that way that are wood. Even some vinyl projects are that way. They want, and you don't want to bring in vinyl composite tile in from a 0-degree trailer and start installing it immediately. You want it to be the temperature of the room when you install it. Otherwise, it's going to expand or contract. This says wood flooring should be delivered 4 to 5 days before installation. Don't install it. Typically it's 7 days. Most manufacturers say 7 days. You don't want any concrete work or plaster work or paint going on when you after it goes into the building, because it will get into the cracks of the wood and you can't get it out. You'll be sanding it immediately. So you want to have all the dust out before you install your wood. Subfloors. So in joist construction, most building codes specify sound and rigid subfloor. You have underlayment, and then you have a subfloor. Subfloor is what we put down at in Goreville on that house we did last semester. What we're gonna put down here in a couple weeks. It's a tongue and groove 3/4 inch OSB Advantech. It's got a 20-year, maybe even a 25-year, maybe 30-year now. I haven't read it lately, but warranty on it. No sand, so it won't swell for 12 months. All right, that's your subfloor. Then you have what you would call underlayment or cement board. Subfloor has a little bit of movement in it, okay? If you're gonna put tile down, you've gotta come in with a cement underlayment and lay down, because that will sit on top of your floor that has a little bit of movement, and it will stop the movement. You can't put ceramic tile on wood because wood moves. Ceramic tile won't. It's like concrete. If anything moves, it'll crack. The joints will go all bad. So you have to put some type of cement board down underneath tile. The subfloor just isn't good enough.
Don't they use that orange matte stuff?
You can use some of that stuff. But there's all kinds of new products coming out that I probably don't know anything about. Because, to be honest with you, the construction industry is changing so quick right now. Unlike for probably 50 years, it was pretty much the same. 35 years probably, it was the same. It hasn't changed. Everybody put down plywood floor, they put underlayment underneath that, and they put the tile down, and bam, we're good to go. Then we started getting into these new products, and we've got a lot of rubber products that we put down. Used to, like we laid concrete or laid over concrete, you put a mastic down over any cracks in the concrete, and basically it would go right into the tile. Now they got these rubber things that they lay down, and if a crack comes up in your concrete, it doesn't transfer to your tile. There's all kinds of things that can happen. Here is a vapor barrier that they're putting underneath the wood to stop moisture from coming up from the crawl space and acclimating the wood differently than what the house is. Recommended moisture content for installing floors: dry, southwest 6%. Southern states is more humid, so you're 10%, and the rest of the country is in between 7 or 8% moisture content. All right. Nailing of a wood floor. Typically, this is what you call a blind nail. It's above the groove at an angle. This is a face nail. We don't like face nailing most things, unless it's non-visible, but sometimes the last board or the first board will need to have some face nails. And if you face nail it, you're gonna go in there with finish nails and nail it differently than you would nail the blind nail here. The blind nail allows everything to work without seeing the nail. Oh. So I've never really seen this. I have seen the need for this, but if you're laying hardwood one direction and you need to switch and go the opposite direction, you end up face nailing both of them, and you put a hardwood spline between the two of them, and you can change your groove to the opposite side. I've never seen this. Most of the time you just backtrack up. You lay it backwards. But it's interesting. So when you're laying floor and you're going from room to room, it becomes more difficult. Laying one room is easy, but when you go into another room and you've got to connect those two rooms together, it normally happens in a doorway. And when we're going from outside to inside, you have a threshold that you put up. But a lot of times, like my house, you're laying laminate flooring through the whole house. So I didn't want transition strips in every door. I wanted it to run smoothly between the rooms. So you have to figure out what room you're gonna lay first, and like in this case here, they're laying both directions. He said they're gonna do this, where's it at? They're gonna do this technique in the middle of a room, right here. Where the way I would have done it was I would have started on this outside wall and I would have worked my way all the way through, stuck one piece out here and then backtracked my way into this corner and then laid up straight all the way across and then continued it all the way through. But they're doing it a different way. I'm not a professional floor layer. I think my way's better.
Easier.
I don't know that it's easier. I think this one here would be easier.
I mean, I do it the same way.
This would be easier,
I don't like that.
but I don't want face nails out in the middle of my floor.
No.
But you can't blind, when you come back, you gotta piece them all in, then figure out what your first piece is, cut it, rip it, and then work your way out. When you're blind nailing, you can't, that last piece, but I just let it stick out in the room about 6 inches, that last piece wouldn't be blind nailed in that point. This is what we do over wood. This is a lot of times what they do in gym floors. They pour a slab and then they build up a barrier, several laps of wood. We call these dead men, or sleepers is what the book's calling them. You lay them down and you attach it to the floor, and then you put a polyurethane in between them, and then you lay another one on top of it and screw it to it. This keeps the water, this gives you a vapor barrier from so the slab sweats, it doesn't get into the wood, but it also gives you some flexibility when you're walking on it. Wood directly onto concrete is like concrete. You know, if you hit it, there's no squish. So it's where is the what's the right word? Where's the give come? If I drop something heavy on the floor, if I've got a little space below it where it can move, it may not dent. But if I laid it directly onto the concrete, when I drop something on the floor, the concrete's not going to move, and the object that I have isn't going to move, so it's going to dent the floor. So there's multiple different reasons why you would want to put it up off the ground. Main reason is moisture, and also get air moving underneath it. So this is that block that they were talking about. You guys seen that before? I've seen it a bunch. I've just not seen it installed on a new home in years and years. I kind of like it, but I'm not. I think there's a little bit of what's the right word? Nostalgia to it. But here's a way to lay it, tile or that block at a angle in the room, so you're 45 degrees. So you come in, you mark mark here, and then you mark here, and all three of these measurements are equal. So if this is 5 foot and 5 foot, you mark it, come straight off the corner, and then this line goes until it runs into nothing, and that puts you dead 90 degrees. And it also gives you a 45 degree to your room. So if you're laying tile in a room and you want to be able to lay it perfectly at a 45 degree angle, this is all you have to do. Measure 5 foot out. You can measure 10 foot or whatever it might be, as long as they're equal. But I typically do 5 foot out, mark the floor, 5 foot out, mark the floor, snap a line between the two of those, and then snap a line from here straight across whatever. Measure this line divided by 2. Mark it, snap a line from this point straight through the middle of that mark until it dies at whatever wall it is, and then you have a 45 degree in the room. So bathroom tiles that are up 45 degrees, you want them to look like diamonds instead of squares, whatever it might be. That's a very easy way to do it. Laminate flooring snaps together. It's called a floating floor. It has a foam underneath it that helps it kind of bounce and eliminate sound. In my opinion, it's probably one of the most economical flooring there is right now, and it's really durable. I'm not a fan of the floating as much as I am the vinyl that you glue to the floor. That product is all vinyl, and it is mold resistant. Water, water can sit on it for weeks. You can flood out a basement with it. It's not going to bother it. Floating floors do not do good in water. So if you're putting it straight onto concrete and you get any sweat, you can have bubbling, and the edges will swell up. And then also you can't put it in the bathroom. But a regular vinyl glue down looks like wood, feels like wood, and is durable enough that you're not going to have to worry about it. Water getting on it. Now, if you're on top of a subfloor of wood, then I don't really think it matters. I personally would go with the floating. But if I'm on concrete, I like the vinyl glue down. When we're installing it, we use these blocks. This is normally a rubber block right here, and you hit the rubber block and it pops together. They got some new stuff now that pops down instead of together. Have you seen it? Anybody seen it? That stuff's cool. Because remember what I was talking about, how you can't replace any wood because they're tongue and groove? The new stuff that pops down, you can literally go in there with suction cups and grab hold of it and pull out a middle piece and then put a new piece right back in its spot. It's pretty neat because you literally set it on and take a hammer and tap it down, then the next piece slides underneath. How does it work? I don't know exactly how it works, but you literally just pop it straight up. Which is very, very good. Underlayment. So here's some underlayment. So if I've got wood flooring, I can put underlayment underneath tile until I get it up to the same height as the wood. But the main thing that I'm probably going to be doing is putting in a rigid surface so that my tile doesn't crack. And that normally raises me up higher than all the stuff around it. Typically, you want to find the center of the room and snap a line down both directions of the center of the room, and then that gives you a 90-degree corner in the middle, and then you work your way to the sides, and then you cut your sides. Is how I'm not a fan of that style, because that means every piece all the way around the edge has to be cut. I typically find the side of the room that I want the full piece tile on, and I start in one side and I work my way across. That's the way I do it. I know it's not floor layer correct, but having a full, it's like ceiling tiles. In here, if I was laying out this ceiling for ceiling tiles, and I put a full piece here, and I put a quarter piece over there, it would look bad. Because it's all visible and you can see it. Where I could center the grid and have a half piece here and a half piece there, and they could be 1 or 2 inches difference in size, but you wouldn't notice it because it's so far apart. But on a floor, a lot of times if you're in a bathroom or if you're in a kitchen, your cabinets come out away from the wall, your refrigerator, your stove, and all that covers up the edge. So typically in those rooms, I'll start full tile on the opposite side away from the cabinets. That way I got a full tile up when I walk in the room on the side where my table's at or where I'm walking. And then when I get over to the cabinets, I have cut pieces around the cabinets. And typically nobody notices that. Like in this room here, I would start full tiles over here, and then when I get to the cabinets, I would have cut pieces all around them. But it is good to measure out and make sure that you're not gonna have a 1-inch tile up against the wall. It's a lot better to have, 3 or 4 inch. So sometimes if I measured out and it was 10'1" and my tiles are 12 inches, I might cut 3 or 4 inches off my first tile, and that way my last tile is 5 or 6 inches instead of being 1 inch. It's important that when you're doing all this stuff, you keep it level and flat. That's all this is saying. Self-adhering tile, you just pull the back off and stick down. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of waste in flooring. I mean, like right here, it's saying if you're doing 50 square feet, you're gonna have 14 square feet left over of waste. Of course, the higher the floor space, the less waste there is. The more open it is, the less waste there is. Sheet goods like flooring or like carpet or vinyl. Here's that vinyl plank I was telling you about just a second ago. I really like this. Glue down. This is probably one of my favorite floorings to because of its durability. Here are all different types of tiles: quarry tiles, ceramic tiles, mosaic. Installing tile, we put a grout down, and we stick it in the grout. We want to make sure that we use a even layer of grout, and then or an even layer of thin set is what they call it, underneath the tile actually sits in and holds it in place. Then we grout. We take a different material that's called grout, and we fill in all the holes, all the cracks between them. There are groutless tiles, which I love. But then when you get back into this, the old style ceramic, they got about a 3/8 inch gap, 1/4 inch gap, something like that. And you got to physically fill in every spot, and then you got to wipe it all down and clean it, and then seal it. I'm not a fan of tile. In general, I don't like tile. I like installing it because it's good money, and it's easy to do. But for me personally, I don't like it in my house or in buildings that I, like my rentals and all that stuff, I'll never put it in. Huh? Yeah, well, you have a lot of maintenance issues with it. Grout breaks and then tiles break. There's just a lot of maintenance, which I don't like.
I hear there's some street in Europe, I don't know which one, and it's like all tile. I don't know if it's Spain or something like that.
There's
kind of amazing.
Overseas, yeah, because they have the prettiest stone over there that they make tile out of, like Italian slate is probably the most good looking, tile that you've ever seen. But if you're putting it on concrete, it's different than if you're putting it on wood. It's a lot more versatile on concrete because concrete doesn't move and it doesn't move, so that's good. But I'm personally not a fan. All right, let's see if there's any videos. No videos. You guys are in a weird spot, different than a lot of my other classes in the past, is because we haven't had as much work as some of the other groups because Second Habitat House didn't kick in this semester. Normally we would not be in the classroom this way. I have never got it this far in this book. Now, I will tell you that the order is, this is a new book, and they've changed the order up, because this chapter and this chapter is normally earlier.
Did you do stair stuff last semester?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, the old book, stair stuff was with wood framing. where they made their own chapter and threw it at the end now. But, I've never made it this far in this book.
You just wanna let us out there, dude.
We're out right now. We're done for today.
Thought we got out till 20.
We're done for today. There's no videos in the chapter. Hey, I gotta put in midterm grades this week. FY for everybody. Everybody's passing at this point. And then the midterm grades are just passing, failing. It just says P or fail, P or F. Or not attending. So everybody's good right now, so don't worry about any of that. Over spring break, I'll put in a bunch of grades. And you guys can kind of see where you're at. As far as this class goes, I think there's only 2 people that don't have an A. And that's because of attendance and not showing up to labs.
Well, that was because it's right there. First one, wasn't perfect. First time. Not too bad.
See you later. Josie, did you notice that she had her makeup done today? And I was thinking, of all days to do your makeup and be like all.
Dude, I look like a freaking rabbit when I woke up on game days.
That's what I thought. I was like, why would you do all that to go out there and sweat?
She's not gonna tell you all her secrets.
One time I tried it, I walked around my house, I'm ready to put my hair done. Makeup done, my mom goes, what the f- is wrong with you? That's
Well-
how it is in my house.
Yeah, because I thought she had like a job interview or something. And I was like, why would you get all dolled up to go play softball?
That's all I was just like. And then in high school, one of the girls, and she actually lives here now, she would always do her makeup. When she was our catcher, and she would wear like the tiny gold hoop earrings.
I would
But
not
see,
want
here's the
that.
thing though, her mask never came off. So,
Yeah, my mask's the first thing that always came off when I was catching.
oh, if my mask didn't come off, like, I all my like come to the fence, and that's like, this is before I decided I didn't like want a collar goal or anything. She would like grab it through the fence and like pull me against the fence and be like, this damn mask better come off next time.
Yeah, my mask was off
Yeah.
immediately.
And that's what, I wanted to get like a baseball one where it's the helmet was separate from the mask, but apparently for softball that wasn't legal, so I had to stick with a regular helmet, which made me upset, but. And I think it was funny, 'cause, like even when I played first base, I out of habit would take my cooling mask off to catch a ball, like a fly foul ball. Until I ran into a fence one time, and I'm like, this thing's just gonna stick.
We never wore fielding masks. Why do you guys wear fielding masks? Why do girls wear fielding masks?
I think it's just 'cause